podcast dedicated to all things travel, from our past adventures to our expectations and plans for future trips. We are here to share our stories and advice. We're your hosts, Dan and Marie.
This is Between Destinations, and I'm your host, Dan.
And I'm Marie.
And we're just having a fun time trying to figure out what to call this episode. But in general, we're closing out the series on Costa Rica, and Marie's just having an awesome time with this. So, yeah, for the first two episodes, we talked about what Marie's experiences were. And then, fortunately, I finally got to go and experience Costa Rica myself. So we're going to talk about that because, it was awesome. I enjoyed it a lot. We did some things that Marie's done in the past, and we did one thing that Marie hadn't done in the past. So that's kind of an interesting story that we'll share as well. So to start off with, what'd you think of this trip?
Oh, I loved it. Every time I come back, I tell Dan about how much I think he would love going. And this was the opportunity for us to get to go together. So I was happy about that. I loved being there with you.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was completely awesome. So I'll have to say that this trip was really kind of the beginning of the trip. All the things leading up to it was rather stressful to me. And the reason it was stressful was because it was the first trip that we went on together where I put a lot of weight on going and filming, doing videos and photography and all that kind of stuff in support of the channel and sort of in support of the gallery and all that kind of stuff. So I had put a lot of pressure on wanting to make sure that I did things right. And then also just trying to get my stuff there because, when the regulation says you can only have 15 pounds of stuff. If you were at 16 pounds, then you're like, oh, they're going to kick me off the plane or they're not going to let me take my stuff. So yeah, I was really kind of stressed over that. But Marie kept saying, no worries. It'll be all right.
No, I didn't say it exactly that way, but I told him to stop stressing over it. But he's Dan. He's going to stress.
Yep. I stressed. And in the end, it turned out to be just perfectly fine. I mean, kind of one of the pivotal moments for me was when we went to get on the plane to go from San Jose to Puerto Jimenez, which is a little single turboprop. And I think in an original episode, I said it was a dual turboprop, but it wasn't. It's just a single turboprop, 12-person plane. Anyways, I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to take my baggage on the plane. That sounds bad. My luggage on the plane. Anyways, he's like, oh, you got camera gear? Yeah, well, we'll just set it up so you can just carry it on. I was like, well, yeah, this is all good now. So I was happy. It made life much better. And so all my gear got to go, and I got to go, and Marie got to go. So it was good. It was really good. We selected the hotel to stay at there based on your prior experiences. And actually, I have notes here because I have really poor memory sometimes. We stayed at the Costa Rica Marriott Hotel Hacienda Belen. And that was kind of like a little oasis in the middle of town, practically. It was pretty cool. Now, so I know in the past you've gone there and you stayed with the ladies. What was it like hanging out with your husband?
Oh, it sucked.
God damn.
What do you expect me to say?
Really? Oh, it's so cold.
No, it was nice for the fact that I've been there, done that, and it is a beautiful hotel, and I enjoy our ladies' night going there and staying before we head out the next day. Getting Dan to see all of this and experience it was really fun for me because I got to show him around the hotel. It's actually on a coffee plantation where they have historical areas that tell you about the plantation and their eco-friendly environment and what they do in Costa Rica, and which they also do at the hotel, and just all kinds of things that I've got to come back and talk about before, but he hasn't gotten to experience. So it was pretty cool going, being able to walk around with him, show him the beautiful sights and and experience it for himself.
So not ever being to any place like Costa Rica before, I really didn't know what to expect. So there were a couple cool things when we got there. One was that the hotel is kind of semi-open. Some of the common areas, like the stairwells and stuff like that, some of them are exposed to the outdoors in the sense that there's like no windows encasing them like you would see in a normal hotel. And then there's an open courtyard, and like the restaurants we'd go into, they would have patios that were open to the outside and all that. So it was really cool in that regards. And it was kind of, I don't know, like maybe Spanish kind of design or whatever. It was just really comfortable. It was like, okay, we're going here to relax and have a good time, even though it was just an initial place for us to go before we went to our final destinations. It was a great starting place. And there's a lot of stuff there. There's like 5 restaurants and a cafe or 7. I can't remember.
No, not that. There's like 4 or 5 altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, yeah, I mean, you didn't have to go any further than that, and you had choices of places to go eat, and that was really nice. And it was kind of funny, when we got there, there was a wedding or something going on. They had a little area they had these huge, like, drapes hanging down. I mean, they must have been like, I don't know, 20 feet or something like that tall, hanging around this little area that looked like it was maybe a covered parking area. And I don't know what all they were doing in there. They had food and other stuff in there. We walked by, not imposing on anything. We just kind of walked by.
It was a wedding. It was a private event, and they had just blocked off the part of the front parking lot to have their outdoor event.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was beautiful.
It was very cool. Yeah. And then we walked around. They had like a place where you could go hit golf balls. And then they had kids. Well, they may not have been kids. They may have been teenagers or something like that would go out there and collect the golf balls after people had gone out and hit all the balls. I was just picturing in my head as they were out there collecting the balls, going back when I was a kid, and we used to try to hit the ball at the guy in the cart driving around collecting the balls, because that was like the thing. I was just like, I wouldn't want to be one of those kids.
What they do.
That's what they do. So one little tip that we got when we flew in, because this was Marie's first time not kind of having all this stuff figured out before we, all figured out for her going in. So we had to figure out all this stuff ourselves. But so when we got there, we went out and we knew that the hotel had a shuttle service, but we really didn't have a clue about the shuttle service or any of that type of stuff. So when we exited the airport, we essentially went down the right through kind of like, there was like a quartered off area, and then it went out into kind of an open area where basically everybody was at. And there was a gentleman down there. Was he holding a Marriott sign?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
yeah, they're all the different hotels. They're very visual. You can see where to go in the passenger pickup area. And then when you get down there, then they're just very helpful. And you walk up to them, just let them know, yes, I need the shuttle, and then they make it happen.
Yeah, so he gave us a couple options, which was this is kind of the big tip on it. He gave us a couple options. He said you could wait for the shuttle that'll be about an hour or 45 minutes or something like that, or I could just call and have a private shuttle come pick you up, and that'll take like 15 minutes or something like that. It took a little bit longer than that, but that was okay. So yeah, we ended up getting the shuttle, and then when we got to the hotel, Marie made arrangements for us to go back to the airport so that we could catch our flight into Puerto Jimenez. But it was all like real easy. That's we didn't have to worry about like, flagging down a taxi or anything like that. It just was super easy. So then we flew out of San Jose to Puerto Jimenez in the little plane. And to be honest, I was worried that because I'd never been in a small plane before, that I never mentioned this to Marie, but I was worried that I might feel airsick or something like that. So I was super, super stoked to find out that I didn't have any problems with that. And I just enjoyed the ride. It was amazing. This is a weird term, but it was more intimate for me flying in that small plane compared to the big jets. I mean, one, you're flying lower, and two, you have more visibility to things than you do in the
Oh,
the
yeah,
big
and you're
jets.
sitting right next to the pilots.
Yeah.
They're talking to you, and there's only 12 people on the plane. So, yeah. But I can tell you, no, he didn't share that with me. I wasn't worried about it. But I can tell you, because it was beautiful weather and it was a beautiful day, you didn't feel sick.
Yeah, and I don't know that I would have.
Those flights, when it's a windy day or there's some storms coming in and they're doing this, yeah, those days have kind of affected me sometimes. But I've only experienced that once. And it wasn't even the worst of the weather there. There's been some other stories I've heard, but yeah, I mean, it was a beautiful day and beautiful weather.
Yeah, we had, I mean, weather-wise, I think we had a perfect trip. So, yeah, it was awesome. We got into Puerto Jimenez, and then we had a little gentleman that helped us find the car rental place. So we got down there, and so I guess another tip, there, the car rental building has like 3 or 4 car rentals in one building. So Alamo, National, whatever the other big ones are, they're all in one place. So it's not like you're going to multiple places like you would at a normal airport, right? Where you might have 3 or 4 different counters to go to find different rental agencies. They're just all in that one building. And I think it's all serviced by the same band
Serviced by
line.
the same people.
Yeah. So it was cool. One recommendation that we have, though, if you're going to Costa Rica, you should rent a
SUV or
four-wheel
four-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And always get the full coverage insurance.
Yeah.
Just do it. It's worth it.
Yeah. We learned that. I shouldn't say we learned that the hard way, because we did get the full insurance, but we did run into a situation that we were happy that we did do that.
Yeah, my cousin, from our prior trips, my cousin had always said that whenever you come here, be sure and get the full coverage liability or full coverage insurance, not because they rent crappy cars, but the car we had rented this time was actually a brand new car. But because the roads there are so bad that you just never know what might happen to the car. So it's worth it just to go ahead and get the coverage and not have to worry about anything. You pick it up, you turn it back in. That's all you got to worry about. So,
anyways, so we got there. We did have to stop on the way to Marmaris, or Osa Marmaris, which is where we stayed. I said that right?
Mm-hmm.
Good. I'm getting it. Yay! So we had to stop at the grocery store, pick up some groceries. We learned a couple things, because we didn't really know. Again, this was, as far as Marie's experience, this was the first time going without it kind of being all set up in advance. So the one thing that we found out after we got to Marmaris was they didn't have spices or anything like that. So if you go and stay at Marmaris, or potentially any of the other places there on the Osa Peninsula in Matapalo, you want to make sure that you're buying spices that you might need. If you need sugar or coffee or any of that type of stuff, you want to definitely make sure that you're picking that up.
And they have them in really small packets, so it's not like you're buying, seasonings that are going to last you for 2 years.
Yeah.
They have little bitty packets of different types of seasonings, so it comes in real handy.
Yeah, and so the other thing that's cool too is if you forget something, they do have a delivery service. We had is he a caretaker?
Mm-hmm.
So
Marmaris caretaker.
Yeah.
He lives on site.
So he was able to call the place and get some stuff that we forgot, like spices and a few other things. And they just bring them out there, which saved us the trip saved us the challenge of driving back to go to the grocery store to pick up things that we missed, which was nice.
Yeah, and of course it's for a fee, but it's not near bad. It was $20, and it's literally a 50-mile trip, round trip, back and forth for the people, and they're doing the shopping. Yeah. So, I mean, no problem here paying that and not having to go into town and do it ourselves.
So this is one thing that I'm kind of on the fence about. They didn't have a GPS unit for us because we didn't order one in advance. And there were a couple times where we kind of got off track to where we were headed. And it would have been nice to have the GPS unit. But then again, I'm on the other side of it because sometimes getting lost takes you to experiences that you wouldn't have otherwise. We've had that experience on some of the motorcycle trips that we've been on in the past where we made a wrong turn and ended up someplace that we didn't expect that we would end up. And we were happy that we made the wrong turn, even though at the time we weren't really, at the time I wasn't happy that we made the wrong turn, even though I was leading the the troop. But anyways, I don't know. I really don't know on that one.
Looking at me like he expects me to. I'm fine with whatever. It's such a small place, the Osa Peninsula, that even if you do get lost, you just stop and talk to a local, and they'll figure out how to get you to where you're going. So, never any concern about it. Would it have been nice, And he had just given out his last GPS unit that morning, and they hadn't gotten any returned yet, and so we were kind of on our own. But then you also have your phones now and stuff. But of course, we're in between destinations, and we don't have Wi-Fi. We hadn't signed up for the service to use our phones there because we know we didn't have to. But they still have the map one that Dan introduced me to while we're there. So it's not like we were so lost or so worried about it, because we had all week, and it doesn't matter if we're an hour off here and there.
Yeah, the only time that the GPS would have been really truly would have come into handy was on our way back from Marmaris to the airport, because I think we drove around for maybe 15 minutes in a circle, practically just trying to find the airport. One, because we weren't believing the map, and two, because nothing that we were seeing looked familiar. So it was...
Well, things looked familiar, but it was a one-way road out of the airport, and we couldn't go back down that road to get to the airport. So we had to go around getting in a different way.
Yeah.
And once we turned, the streets are not north, south, east, west. They're like all over the place. Yeah. So we just kept trying to figure it out, and the signage wasn't that great. But then again, it did say airport day, or however you say that, this way. But then once we went that way, we're like, no, it can't be down here. So we turned around, and it was down there. We just had to go through some really little back roads that weren't really roads. They were just dirt.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We found it eventually.
Yeah, we eventually got to the airport. So we got to Marmaris, Osa Marmaris, and I really didn't know what to expect. I've seen pictures on the website, but I really didn't know what to expect. So you drive down. Oh, so another tip. If you're headed to Matapalo or to any of the places, on the way to Matapalo, you're going to come to a little bus stop that's a kind of open... I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like this open thing with a slanted roof on it. And there was a sign there when we were there for Andy's place.
Yeah, Psycho Tours.
Yeah, but we drove right by it.
But there were also signs on the tree that said to turn left. We were so distracted, I didn't even pay attention.
Yeah.
I would have known, like, oh, we need to turn here. And in fact, even after we drove past there, I was like thinking to myself, like, were we supposed to turn back there? But I was like, oh, well, let's keep driving and see what happens. But yeah, we were supposed to turn there.
Yeah. So then you turn, and then you go down this, the road that you're on driving from Puerto Jimenez to Matapalo is not that bad of a road. It's just gravel road, got some potholes in it and all that kind of stuff. But the road in Matapalo is a whole different level of road. It's like single track. It's got big rocks in it and little creeks that you have to drive over.
And that's why you get the 4-wheel drive is for that road. And it's literally probably a mile and a half to the house we stayed at. And they keep the road that way on purpose, because it keeps people from speeding, from driving too fast, from... it helps protect the animals and the people walking on the road. So they don't want to fix it. They want to leave it as it is, because it's natural, and it just keeps the environment safer.
It's a struggle to walk on. And if you can imagine a road being a challenge to walk on, driving on it, yeah. And we're seeing little people, or I shouldn't say we're seeing little people. We're seeing people riding scooters down these roads. And I'm like, no way. That's
But they're used to it.
Yeah, they're used to it. We got to Osa Marmaris. I really had no clue. It was nothing that I expected at all. It was basically a mini compound. I mean, you had gates that you'd go through to get into the place. Pretty much a lot of the places have gates you go through to get into the property. I was trying to find something, a term that best described it, and I think you could almost call it a villa. Yeah, I don't know that I have a really good... It's not really a compound.
It's not a compound, it's a villa.
And it's not a villa either, but it's like somewhere in between. It was cool, and our view was amazing. And then the other thing that was kind of, I wasn't prepared for, or maybe I wasn't sure that I was prepared for it. If you hear me meowing, it's because our cat's hanging out with us, is that the buildings are pretty much kind of like the hotel. They're open to nature, which, to be honest, wow, that ups the level of the experience. I mean, you sense nature 24/7, and it's super relaxing. I mean, you do have like doors and stuff that you can close off to make the space real private. But really, we just closed the screen doors so that the bugs wouldn't bug us as much during the night or get in there during the day. But otherwise, we had stuff opened all the time just because it was, yeah.
Yeah, there's screen doors, but there's no lock on in any of the rooms. I mean, you don't have to worry about your stuff getting there are safes in each room, so you can lock up your valuables, your money and your purse and stuff like that. But the rooms themselves, there's no need for locks. They have the screen doors that close, and then they also have shutters that will close behind that in case, if the weather got bad or something. But it's between 75 and 85 there all year round. And so no air conditioning. You have fans, but you don't need the air conditioning because it's just so cool. And you can sleep with the fans on. It's nice and cool and it's not miserable. So it's really, it's a really nice environment. And it has a big open community area where the kitchen and the dining room and the huge just like porches that you can sit there and just watch nature and look out at the ocean and the beautiful scenery and the backyard.
It was quite an experience. I mean, you get up in the morning, you go drink your coffee, and you just be like, oh, okay, I'm here. I'm having my coffee and I'm seeing these things. I'm experiencing these things. To be honest, within the first day, work and everything else in the world just kind of was gone. I was totally in the space and decompressing big time.
Oh, and no TVs.
Yeah, no TVs. It was peaceful. I mean, you could just be in that moment for I don't know. I don't want to say indefinitely, but man, you could definitely be in those moments for a long time and just be happy. I can see why there's a desire by some of the people that have moved there to move there and stay, just because it's a different lifestyle. It's like that. I don't want to say it's no worries, but really that's kind of no worries. Things will happen as they happen, and
yeah, it's very laid back and very relaxed. And that's pretty much the reason I like to go there so much and literally get off grid. They have Wi-Fi, but people know when I'm going to Costa Rica that I'm gone for a week. I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to text you. I'm not going to Facebook you. I'm not going to Instagram. I'm not going to do any social media. Well, first of all, I don't have anything but Facebook because I don't want anything else. But I'm that old person. That's what I enjoy pretty much the most about Costa Rica is I get off the grid. Have time to think about, myself and my mental, capacity and what's going on in my life, and just forget about everything else and just unwind and relax. And Dan got to experience that with me this time. So I was really happy that he enjoyed that part of it.
So there are a couple of unique things about that experience. One, they don't have a traditional coffee maker. It's basically like a sock that you put the coffee grounds into and then pour hot water over, which was like pour over coffee, if you're familiar with that. So there was that, and that was interesting. So for whatever reason, Maria was waking up before I was. I don't know how that happens because I don't sleep.
He slept there. That tells you anything.
Slept there. So she'd get up and make coffee, and then a little bit later she'd make breakfast. And so we had a routine. She would cook and I would clean. And that worked out perfectly. I was like, well, I feel bad because I'm not cooking. She's like, nope.
We decided that early in the week. I said, if you'll clean, I'll cook. And so I was good with that.
Yeah. She knows how to cook. Oh, man, it was awesome. And yeah, it was just that whole experience. Now, there are a couple things to keep in mind. So the waste products, like scrap pieces of food or whatever, your meat carvings or whatever, and have to go in a special container that they compost, and then you have trash, and then you have recycles. You have to make sure that you put things in the appropriate places. And then the other thing that we didn't know or didn't think about is the kitchen area is actually fully sealed off. The rest of the buildings, like in the arch area, things can climb in or whatnot. But in the kitchen, that's all wired off, and we hadn't been closing the kitchen. So one night, I think raccoons or something got in there and got into some of the stuff.
One night. And we were warned, Isaac warned us the day that we got there, be sure and close the containers at night, because he said otherwise the raccoons will get into them. And so we were closing the lockable containers. And then one night, the raccoons did actually get into the lockable containers. And so then Isaac said, well, are you locking the doors off at night, just the sliding doors? And we're just like, well, part of them, but not all of them. We leave one set open. He goes, no, you need to lock them all. So then we knew at that point. Yeah. Okay, but...
Isaac's the groundkeeper.
Caretaker.
Sorry. Groundskeeper, caretaker. Yeah, my bad. Sorry, Isaac. He was a really cool dude, and he helped us out a ton while we were there. There's so many people there. I mean, if you come home from a trip and you feel like there are people that helped you out on that trip that you didn't expect, I think for me, I come back feeling like, oh, that was extra special because of these individuals that were there. I mean, like when we went to Ireland, and we'll get into our Ireland trip in a later episode, Marie ran into a gal at a coffee shop and had a very cool experience with that. A lot of these trips are about the people that you interact with and meet along the way more so than the trip itself. I mean, yeah, it was beautiful and amazing and all that kind of stuff. And I'll carry that experience and those images with me the rest of my life. But I'll also carry with me the people that we met, because it just enriched the whole experience.
Yeah, and I've met some of the locals there on my prior trips with Anne. And Ed, like for instance, Eddie, even though, we hired Eddie to help us with surfing and kayaking, Eddie checked on us every single day to make sure we were okay, and wanted to, he helped us do things that we had brought up while we were talking to him, like, oh, we'd like to do this. And he helped us. He gave us, direction on what to go, where to go, what to do. And then also he helped Dan find a sloth that he had asked, and I really would like to see a sloth while I'm here. And Eddie found us that sloth. And then he messaged me and said, hey, I got 5 minutes. Come with me and I'll show you where the sloth is. And so he came over real quick. We left, we went, and he showed us where the sloth was. And then he said, okay, I got to go, bye. And he left. But he took that time. He found the sloth, and not only did that, but he took the time to make sure that he walked us to where it was so that we could see it. Yeah. And then he did check in with us a couple hours later after his commitment to say, so did y'all see it, and checked in on us and stuff. And when we did have some car trouble while we were there, and he checked in on us. And then he also offered to, check in on us when we were headed back to the airport in case we didn't make it. He was going to come get us and take care of us. And we didn't ask him to do anything like that. No. But he was there, and that's how all the locals are there. Not just Eddie, but there were numerous other locals that I got the phone number of a guy that was just taking another group of people around. And I had mentioned to him while we were standing out looking at the monkeys, like, yeah, we come down here and it'd be nice to have, somebody's phone number in case we have trouble. And I had told him we were concerned about the car and making it to the airport, back to the airport. And he said, well, here, take down my number. And he gave me his number and said, next time you're in Costa Rica, if you need anything, let me know. But he was not just selling himself for next trip. He was really concerned about us. And, he visited with us there on the side of the road for a while. And we weren't on the side of the road because the car broke down. We were on the side of the road because we were walking. They were taking tourist places, and they saw monkeys in the trees. Yeah. So they stopped so everybody could look at the monkeys. But he reached out to these strangers walking down the road as well. So everybody there, the locals are just so open and help. And he didn't expect a tip. He didn't expect anything in return. He was just being nice.
The other person that helped us out quite a bit while we were there, or at least initially, because then he had to go take off and go see his daughter, was Andy.
Both kids. He was going with both kids.
So yeah, Andy's really cool. He took us on our first hike when we got there. So we went up hiking to the waterfalls, and then when we went and climbed Marie's tree beard, she had to conquer her tree. That's if she goes to Costa Rica, she's got to climb that tree, and she did. So talk about like the tree. How was the tree different this time, or was it just like, yeah, been there, done that? I had to make sure that I marked it again off my checklist or whatever.
Oh, climbing Treebeard is the whole motivation for me to get in shape when I know I'm going to Costa Rica, because I can't climb that tree unless I get in shape. So very motivating. But yeah, we get there and just, the hike with Andy, and he is just so knowledgeable, him and Eddie both, about the environment and telling us about the forest and how everything has a defensive mechanism and an offensive mechanism. And I love hearing about all of that. But Treebeard is a vining tree that I climb each time I go. Once I do it, I feel very accomplished and that I'm still able to do that at my age. So I look forward to climbing Treebeard every time I go. We lucked out because I messaged Andy once we got there. And he said, well, yeah, he said, we can either go today or tomorrow. He said, but after that, I'm out of here for a couple of weeks to go on a trip with my kids. And I was like, oh, well, good thing we got a hold of you. Let's go tomorrow. We got up and got going with him in the morning. And that was really, really enjoyable.
So that kind of set off my understanding of Costa Rica from Marie's sense of things a little bit. I was thinking, we were going and relaxing and all this kind of stuff, but no, we didn't go to relax. We went for a more enjoyable version of exercise. We walked every day. We did a lot of activities every day, but you didn't really ever feel like you were, it's not like going to the gym and working out on the treadmill for an hour. It's like, oh, we're going to go walk up a mountain trail and try not to fall in the creek.
Well,
or get bit by some new creature.
No, first of all, we didn't get bit by anything while we're there, so don't take that out of the wrong context. So we go during January because that's when the bugs are at the lowest there. So no bugs, no mosquitoes, no nothing. Yay. But no, it's an enjoyable, relaxing activity kind of place. Yeah. So, we didn't have to do anything we didn't want to do. So we walked because we wanted to walk. We climbed the tree because we wanted to climb the tree. We hiked because we wanted to hike. But we could go there and just sit. And there were numerous afternoons where we just sat and we just watched the water and we just sat, and I journal when I'm there, and Dan would work on his videos and editing and stuff like that because that's what he enjoys doing. So when the Wi-Fi was up, yes, we did a lot of activities, but they were very relaxing activities.
Yeah, so. No, there was it wasn't like the whole challenging Bear Grylls type thing or whatever that new series is with Bear Grylls. It was like, go at your own pace. We went and looked for monkeys one day, and then we went and looked for sloth another day and looked at other things. And
we had other activities planned that we didn't do because we decided, nope, we're too tired. We don't want to do that today. So we didn't. So that was a nice thing, is you're not committed to a schedule that you're going, and then you come home from vacation thanking God you're home so you can rest. It's not that way at all.
Yeah, totally.
At all.
So we didn't do zip lining, which Marie's done in the previous 2 trips she went on. She did zip lining both times. And there's like a chocolate plantation there. We talked about going and doing the chocolate plantation, but we didn't do that. There's also horseback riding, and you can actually go on formal tours and stuff like that to find the animals. And we didn't do any of those type of things. Like there's a photography tour or whatever that they have. And those were things that we didn't do. The things that we did, though, was just enough to enjoy and get a good taste and exposure to things. So we went surfing part of one day. That was fun. I finally got up surfing for longer than like a nanosecond, which made me happy. We did go on a hike one thing that Marie had never done before. We went on a nighttime hike. Yeah, I'll let you share that experience.
We had been told that there were night hikes where you could go and use blue lights or ultraviolet lights, whatever kind of lights, so that you can see the creatures that are out at night that you don't usually see during the day. So we decided to go on a night hike. And so Eddie took us on that. And it actually was the same tour that we had gone on with Andy that afternoon to the waterfall, but it was just in the dark. And There was no moon while we were there. The new moon had just been done and finished. So it was the very beginning of a crescent moon. So it was extremely dark. Eddie took us out and we walked, and it was probably a 3-hour hike total. So it wasn't just like 30 minutes up a trail and back. And we got to see like 13 different species of animals. And Eddie would, point to something and show us, look right there. And he had a pointer so we could look, because I'm like, how did you even see that? But of course he knows to look for them. So we saw spiders and animals and
Shrimps. We saw shrimp in the water.
The shrimp, their eyes glow orange in the dark, the freshwater shrimp, just all kinds of different animals and stuff. And we hiked literally the same hike we did that afternoon, but in pitch black. At one point, Eddie said, okay, let's all turn out our lights so we can show you how dark it really is here. And we turned out the lights, and you couldn't even see 2 inches in front of your face. It was so dark. And I'm just like, you know what? If the flashlights went out, I literally would be sitting here for 8 hours or 12 hours till the light came up, because I wouldn't be able to move. One wrong step to the left or the right, and you may be going down a mountain. So it's thank God for your tour guides.
Yeah. So when Eddie said, okay, well, you want to see how dark it is and turn out your lights, we turned out our lights, and I just stood there. I didn't move. I looked up, and I tried not to move like anywhere, because you're just like, if I take a step, I have no idea what I'm stepping on or where I'm stepping to. And the next time they might find me, I could be at the bottom of the creek or something. There was one little part about it that was a little kind of nerve-wracking, I guess. As we started the trail up into the mountain section, so the original part of the walk up in there, we all walked together as a group, but when we started up into the mountain trail part, Eddie goes, okay, so you have to give me at least 10 feet of space, because if I have to jump, I have to have room to jump. And I'm like, what are we jumping from?
So Eddie had been wanting to see a python, and that had been like his biggest wish. He was really hoping to see a python to show us. And we're looking at each other like, what? But that's Eddie. So that's when he told us, he said, I just need to make sure that stay 10 feet behind me, because if I see a snake or I see something and I need to jump back, I don't want to land on you. So then, we stayed 10 feet apart from each other in case any of us had to jump.
Yeah. So that was... When Eddie turned off the light, that was also going through my mind. And then when we were crawling around stuff, I was sitting there with one hand on a camera and the other with my flashlight, and thinking, okay, I don't want to slip. I don't want to fall, but I don't want to put my hand in a hole and get bit by something either. Yeah. It was an experience. It was an amazingly enjoyable experience. Not necessarily as amazing, enjoyable experience in the moment, because you're really thinking about, okay, what's coming around the corner to eat me? What's this? What's that? And in the dark, things just seem a whole lot different because you can't see anything.
And see, that's personalities, because I never worried about it at all. I think just because I trust that Eddie wasn't going to put us in a situation where we would be in danger, but I wasn't even thinking about any of that stuff and worried about it. So, yeah.
Because...
It's okay, honey. I'll save you.
Whatever. She'll save me. So here's what she told me once, really, to be honest. She said if we were ever attacked by zombies, she would make sure that she at least hobbled me or whatever, so that... If nothing else, she was outrunning me so that she would be okay.
I never said I'd hobble him. I just told him that I run faster. So
yeah.
I never said I was going to hurt you. I honestly could not tell you what I would do in that situation. You just don't know till you're there.
That's true. Well, hopefully we never ever find out.
Yeah.
That was like our second day being there, our first full day being there. And that was cool. We got kind of the walks out of the way, and then we relaxed. We did the surfing. That was awesome. We also did the sunset kayaking. Now, the one thing I had in my head about the sunset kayaking is that we were going out kayaking and watching the sun set. And that's not exactly what you do. You paddle out, you watch the sun get to a certain point as far as sun setting, and then you turn around and come back because you need to be back into shore before the sun actually set. And I didn't know that, so it was something that I learned from that trip that I didn't know. It was cool.
So it's a sunset kayak trip because you're kayaking while the sun is setting. But yeah, you have to be back because, again, it gets dark out there and you don't want to be out in the middle of the ocean while it's too dark.
Yeah, which is understandable.
But you usually take headlights, and that's the whole reason that you carry the headlamps and stuff is so that when you go on these type of trips that you can get back into shore. But all the guides make sure that you're close enough. We did get back into shore at dark. It was already dark, but they make sure that you're close enough in that you're going to be able to see where you're going and what you're doing.
That was an upper body workout. And to be honest, I was expecting it to be a lot harder than it was. And it wasn't. Again, this whole trip, I was expecting things to be a lot harder than they were, just because I felt that I wasn't physically in shape for it. Other than walking, I really haven't done anything other than pack around a camera here and there. The biggest problem I ran into was we did the double kayak, and I think the seat configuration for the double kayak was just not a good fit for me. I was too cramped up. And so my back started hurting and my legs started hurting. So with that aspect of it, it was uncomfortable. But as far as like the actual paddling and stuff like that, it was not bad at all. I've gone kayaking in the past and I thought I was going to die. So I was pretty happy with how this one went, to be honest.
Well, and this kayaking trip was different for me because we kayaked in the ocean or in the actual Gulf. In the past, we've kayaked through the mangroves and it's been really calm water. But we tried a different kayak trip this time. And I can say as far as a double kayak goes, is I think I should have been up front and Dan should have been in back. So this is lessons that we've learned for what not to do next time. He needed more room in the back and I think that would have worked. But also too, we got the double kayak because I thought, well, I can paddle while he films. And then we got out there and realized we both have to paddle. Yeah. And so you might as well just get a single kayak. You have control of your kayak. You have the space you need. That would be my suggestion for that. Now, if you have kids or something, I could see put the kids in the front, you paddle from the back and stuff. But if it's adults, just go ahead and get the single kayaks and follow each other because you have total control instead of having to paddle together and keep the rhythm going and the possible, cramping of the legs and stuff. Yeah,
that was the biggest problem. And when I start to hurt, I get into kind of a crappy mood. So unfortunately, Marie gets to see my crappy moods every now and then.
That's okay. There aren't many.
Yeah, thank goodness. I'm not in pain that often. Those things that we did were enough. Yeah, it would have been cool to go ziplining, but it would have been one additional thing that we had to go do. Not saying that we had to go do, but it would have been one more thing that we scheduled that we had to go do and would have taken away some of the experiences that we had otherwise. And it's like I sat there one day on the patio and was watching this weird thing running around the backyard. We were like, oh, well, we've got a neighbor. And I don't know, looked like a cross between a dog with sleek fur and a rat or something like that. And we figured out what the name of it was, but it just didn't have any fear of us. It kind of reminded me of being at home because in our backyard, we have squirrels and rabbits and bobcats and things that come out and hang out in our backyard. Not necessarily why we're out there, unless they're raccoons. The raccoons don't care if we're in the yard or not. They'll come out and hang out with us.
We live on a green belt and there's lots of nature right behind us. So.
Yeah. So it was kind of like being at home like that. And then there was this huge iguana that would go out. We don't know where it came from, but it would climb the tree in the backyard. And so I'd sit there and look at the iguana and take pictures of it. It was nice just having nature. And hearing the monkeys, we went and looked for monkeys. And actually on the trail that we went on, we had the
capuchin monkeys.
The capuchin monkeys. They were cool. They were curious. They got
up close and personal.
Yeah, that was fun. It was
cool. It was really cool.
Yeah. There was so much of that trip that we came back with that it was like, in fact, when I came back, the first video that I felt that I needed to make was a video that I entitled, I think I originally entitled it the Costa Rica, the trip that we never truly returned from, because I honestly believe that part of us stayed in Costa Rica in our hearts, in our souls, because it's just, I don't know, it's paradise, but it's peaceful, and the pressures of life were not there. Everything that I have in my head for how I want life to be going forward, I felt in those moments. And so part of me just, I don't think we'll ever return from there. And we'll always want the opportunity to go back, which is, I mean,
Oh yeah, we'll go back.
yeah,
And
that's,
they're known to have the happiest people. And there's a reason they're happy is because they don't let stuff stress them out. And so,
yeah.
and again, we're going there on vacation so we can relax. I'm sure you have situations everywhere. Of course they have stuff. They have family life, they have business, they have work, they have stuff too. But overall, they just don't let things get to them, and they're able to relax and stay happy. And they show us that whenever we travel there.
Yeah, it was a good trip. Definitely a good trip. Now, I will say that I had in my head what I thought this trip was going to be like as far as seeing the animals and all that kind of stuff. Because I really pictured it in my head. You'd go past a tree and you would see some sort of animal, either a sloth or a monkey or whatever. You definitely hear them, but you do not see them as much as, I mean, they're a lot more sparse. Like when we saw the sloth, I was expecting we would see the sloth kind of in the jungle areas that we were traipsing through. And we never saw any sloths. I mean, they may have been there, but we didn't see them.
Well, I was going to say, I think they're there. We just don't have the eye for them, or
Right.
we don't know where they are. So,
And don't get me wrong, there's lots of wildlife and lots of things to see, but I just kind of pictured this whole experience being almost kind of like going to the zoo, right? Where you go around a corner and there's a whole bunch of animals, and you go around another corner and there's a whole bunch of animals. And you really actually had to look for animals as you went through. So to me, that's cool because it means that, when you find something and you get an opportunity to take a picture of something, taking it from the photographer side of stuff, you've actually had to put some work into it, which is awesome. I think it brings more meaning to the entire experience. Whereas if it was like a zoo, right, you can go down to the zoo and take pictures of giraffes and all sorts of stuff. But if you go out to the Sahara, is it the Sahara? Yeah, out to the Sahara and take pictures of a giraffe or something out there, then you had to work for that. It's not, you didn't just wake up in the morning and walk down a well-designed path or something to see something. So I guess kind of to bring this to a close, what were some of your takeaways from this trip?
I enjoy going there because the locals are so kind and nice. And it just reminds me that, this life is short. And if you get the opportunity to get away and be able to just focus on yourself, just for mental and not necessarily physical reasons, but just to regenerate, I really think a trip to Costa Rica is worth it, because we all need that downtime to regenerate and to just be kind to ourselves. Everybody is worthy. You are worthy. And I don't even know what to say. It's worth it to spend time on yourself and help yourself to just heal mentally and physically, and just to take the time away from all the busy noise of life right now, and get that downtime. And then what I enjoy about after being there for a week, it reminds me when I come home to do the same thing.
So for me, just being disconnected, not having to worry about work or the demands of work or other things going on, it was just nice. Being able to sit out, feel the warmth, because I can't stand being cold. I just can't stand being cold. So being in an environment where it was warm all the time, not hot, but warm, was just, it does a lot for my psyche. I mean, a whole lot for my psyche. And an interesting thing, we didn't talk about it, but there was one aspect of the trip that I got to the point where I really looked forward to at the end of the day. The master bathroom was kind of inside outside. So basically thatched roof. The bathroom part was covered by the roofing, and then you'd go out and it was covered by the thatched roof. But it was just like kind of a privacy fence between you and the outdoors. And then there was one little area that was completely exposed to the outdoors, in the sense that it didn't have a roof over it. It still had the walls around it. But they had a shower in there with no walls. It just had kind of like a little wall to kind of keep the water in that went up to, I don't know, just below your knee or right about knee height on one side. And so you could just turn the water put it on maximum because it didn't get hot. It just got warm. It just got the right temperature. I mean, maybe it would have been nice if it was a little bit warmer, but it got to be the right temperature. And it was a shower head, not like a typical shower head where it jets you with strong water or whatever. It just kind of rained down on you. And I can remember walking into that shower the first time and just being, oh, wow, this is that moment of you're in this kind of odd thing where you're exposed to the world in some regards, but yet you're sheltered and you're having this really cool moment. I don't even know how to explain it. It was a moment that I'll remember forever, or moments I'll remember forever, because one, I was getting rid of the kind of the dirt from the day that it had collected with all the stuff they were doing. But at the other side, it was just taking a very free moment. I think my other takeaway from it, I've traveled some in my life. I was in Germany for a tiny, tiny bit, like a day. I've been to India, China, Malaysia, Ireland, and I can't remember where else. And then I've traveled all over the United States, but I've never traveled any place like Costa Rica. So I kind of had no really idea of what that experience was going to be like, just other than the stuff that Marie had told me. So to actually experience something totally new that I had never experienced before was awesome. Because I had learned that cultures in different countries are quite a bit different than what they are in the States, and the attitudes are quite a bit different, which is cool. And just kind of having that kind of break from, I don't know, it's hard to explain. I feel like there's a lot of tension at home, not in our, like relationship or whatever, just in life, being at home, there's tension. Getting in a car, driving down the road, there's tension. Going to the grocery store, there's tension. And that tension didn't exist when we were there. In fact, I don't think that for most of the places that I've traveled to, I haven't found tension, which is weird.
Again, too, though, I think that's a difference than your traveling versus your
Yeah.
home life. So,
Totally.
that's going to have something to say there, too, because
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the big takeaways for me were just, it was good to get away and experience that. And it actually solidified. I know we were walking down a trail at one point. I was like, this is it. This is the mark. Because when we started this channel at the beginning of the year, it was, okay, we're starting a travel channel because we're going to start traveling. Because when you say that you're going to do something, you start to put it into words, you start to turn it into a thing. And I've always wanted to travel, and I always wanted to take Marie to places. Literally, there was a moment where we were walking down a trail, and I was like, we are in this moment, we are in this time, this transition in life from talking about traveling to traveling and having the travel channel and all that kind of stuff, which is now turned into our channel and our podcast, which is awesome. Growth is always good. New experiences are amazing. But this was the trip that solidified the future for me in so many ways. It made the hopes, desires, and dreams into concrete and gave a foothold to what the future will look like. So I'm so overwhelmingly blessed to have had this opportunity. Anything else you want to share? Sure.
you
Okay.
said it all.
So I'm not sure exactly what our next episode will be about. We actually have a trip coming up. So by the time this is aired, we may be getting ready to leave for that trip, or we will be on the trip. I'm not 100% positive. So there may be something of a break between this episode and our next podcast episode. So bear with us on that, and we will get on to a more regularly scheduled basis. We thank you all for tuning in, and this is Between Destinations with your host, Dan.
Anne Marie.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
This has been Between Destinations with your hosts, Dan and Marie. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, it would be amazing if you left us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you watched this episode from our YouTube channel, please give us a like and hit that subscribe button along with that little bell so that you can get notifications about our future episodes. Please share this episode with others that would enjoy sharing in the adventure. And feel free to let us know if you have any questions. We may just feature an answer to your question in a future episode. Thank you, and see you next time.